Hello, and welcome to the Paranormal Operator Podcast, where we talk about all manner of things that go bump in the night. Here, we discuss sightings, investigations, news, and popular media surrounding the paranormal, supernatural, and occult phenomena. So settle in as we search for the truth. I'm your host, Adam, Operator 23. In today's episode, 20% of academics have actually seen or know someone who has seen a UFO. 92% of UFO sightings happen in the U.S. 2 international airports shut down in response to UFOs. The April 2021 mass UFO sighting at 29 Palms. Space weather and meteor activity. A Bigfoot sighting out of Washington State. Outdoor safety tips. Ghamping at the Conjuring House. Haunted locations in coastal South Carolina. Upcoming events. Anticipated video games. And a review of the latest season for Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. UFO News. Our first news article comes from InterestingEngineering.com, entitled, "Nearly 20% of academics surveyed say they've seen a UFO or know someone who has." This article is dated May 22nd. Quote, "A study published in the journal Humanities and Social Science Communications surveyed 1,460 U.S. academics and found that almost 20% of tenure-track faculty have personally observed or know someone who has observed a so-called unidentified aerial phenomena." End quote. Of those surveyed, around 37% felt that it was very important that research into this phenomena would be continued. To be exact, it is 37.26, and they responded to the survey that further research was either very important or absolutely essential. Our next article comes from studyfinds.org, entitled, "Do Aliens Love America? 92% of UFO sightings take place in the United States," and it is also dated May 22nd. Quote, "According to a survey commissioned by bonusfinder.com, a staggering 92% of all reported UFO sightings take place in the U.S., with 126,094 reported sightings across all states since record-keeping began. America's neighbor to the north, Canada, comes in second, with just 5,696 sightings during the same period. Interestingly, alien spacecraft like to stick around longer up north, with UFO incidents in Canada lasting for over 5 hours per sighting. The United Kingdom reported the third most sightings with 3,146. End quote. In the U.S., California is the number one state for UFO sightings with 15,480, followed by Florida, which is about half. They have 7,835. Washington is next with 6,889. Texas with 5,814. And New York in 5th place with 5,627. For those interested, the descending order continues with Pennsylvania at number 6, Arizona at number 7, Ohio at number 8, Illinois at number 9, and North Carolina to round out the top 10. While Pennsylvania might only be 6th, it does seem to have the longest average visits, with most UFO sightings averaging to around 40 minutes per sighting. This data was collected from the National UFO Reporting Center State Report Index, with sightings from the US, Canada, and Europe. UFO sightings. At least 2 different international airports in 2 months have been shut down due to UFO contact. In an article from the New Straits Times in Taiwan, an article is reported to say that on April 12th, nearly 1,000 passengers were disrupted after an object was reported by a pilot. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it said the pilot was Chinese. Not that that really makes any difference, other than maybe he saw something, maybe he didn't, and maybe he just wanted to be a jerk. Anyway, while the closure in Taiwan only lasted for 40 minutes, the second, however, lasted for 12 hours. The Star, out of Turkey, reports that on May 20th, an incoming plane's radar picked up an object around 9,000 feet. The radar contact led to the cancellation of at least 18 flights. Unfortunately, this is all the information we have at the moment. No visual contact was made, no photos, no video, but hopefully some more information will be forthcoming. Now to our big story. On April 20th, 2021, so a couple years ago, at approximately 8:20 p.m., a triangle-shaped object with 5 visible lights flew over Camp Wilson at 29 Palms in California. It's important to note that 29 Palms is, in fact, the largest Marine Corps training facility in the United States. This story has been making the rounds recently as footage of the event has been released. And if you look it up, it's pretty easy to find. Most of your major networks have had some sort of article or interview on this. More specifically, the Weaponized podcast with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp have been the ones to really break this news. And if you want to watch their episode around this event, it's going to be episode 18. According to Corbell, this event was a mass sighting, and there were at least 50 people that he knows of who saw the object. And as far as where it came from, we have no idea. Most reports say that it just appeared. He also stated that witnesses could make out the body of the craft, meaning that the lights were not individual objects, but rather part of a much larger craft. If you go to his Instagram page, he has several video clips, the same video clips that are also in his podcast, Weaponized Podcast, episode 18. The second clip, you hear Marines saying that this object is not a flare because the lights are not falling, and the object appears to be moving ever so slightly forward. Some of them you may hear say that they think it's stationary. It's kind of hard to tell. Now, the angle in this shot makes the object look rounded as opposed to angled. And in the third video clip, the object appears to vanish from camera, but the Marines shooting the footage do not mention whether or not the object actually disappeared or whether it's just, a camera thing. The craft was completely silent, and some estimate it to be as large as a 2-story, 3-bedroom house. That's pretty big. I've also seen estimates that say that it was up to half a football field. Interestingly, another Marine detachment who was not, I don't think they were at Camp Wilson, I think they were somewhere else at 29 Palms, shot illumination flares to try and get a better view of the craft. And this is very poignant because if you watch the clip where these flares are, you can clearly see this flare, and you can tell that it is not the same as the craft. It's a different color, it's behaving differently. It's falling down. The flare has a small parachute, but it's still going to fall, right? Because gravity. So you can clearly see this is a flare. This is not a flare. Unfortunately, though, as the flare got closer to the craft, it vanished. Now, during the incident, or immediately following it, personnel and helicopters were deployed in response to the craft. One Marine even stated that there was a 60-plus vehicle convoy. That is a lot of men and material to throw at something like this. Although, not maybe inappropriate. Something else that you might want to note, or at least something that I found intriguing about this episode, was that at the onset of the episode, kind of like during the introduction, they came to the, I don't want to say conclusion, they floated the idea that Kirkpatrick, who is head of AARO, the government UAP office at the moment, might not be there much longer, as it seems that he might be becoming tired of the uncooperative bureaucracies in the different branches who are just not, well, they're uncooperative, and they're not giving him the information that they need, or that he needs, rather. And it's very possible, from how they were talking, that this incident may not have been brought to AARO as well. And you would think that, this being a relatively recent event, with as many eyes that were on it, as many cameras that were out there, would have been brought forward. But I don't know. If you would like to follow Jeremy Corbell, he's on Instagram and YouTube at Jeremy Corbell. And if you want to look for him on Twitter, I'm probably going to butcher this name, but I'm going to give it a try. His Twitter handle is at Jeremy Kenyon Lockyer Corbell. That's Jeremy Kenyon, Kenyon, Lockyer, Lockyer, Corbell. And if you get some time, subscribe to his YouTube. Him and George Knapp, they have a pretty good podcast. For those of you that don't know, George Knapp is actually a pretty well-renowned journalist. He did some Skinwalker Ranch stuff, as well as some Coast to Coast. So he's a pretty cool guy. Space weather. This from spaceweather.com. There is an increasing likelihood of solar activity coming from sunspot AR3315. NOAA is currently predicting a 55% chance of M-class solar flares and a 10% chance of X-class solar flares over the next 48 hours. Yesterday saw one of the largest eruptions so far in solar cycle 25. What exactly exploded, we do not know, but there does seem that perhaps there was a sunspot on the far side of the sun. What makes this event rather odd is its rapidity. It happened very, very fast, a lot faster than most scientists would suspect something like this to happen. Now, the threat from impactors this week is not high at all, with the majority of asteroids staying beyond 1 lunar distance. The closest this week will be an asteroid 2023 KU2 on May 28th, coming to 2.8 lunar distance, with a diameter of only 12 meters. The largest asteroid for the week, however, is 33 meters, and it's going to be making its pass May 29. It is named 2023 JZ4, and it is going to be coming at around 6 lunar distances. Meteor observing will be slow this week, according to the American Meteor Society. On May 27th, the moon will be reaching its first quarter phase and continue to wax, which will obscure meteor activity. Quote, the estimated total hourly rates for evening observers this week should be near 3, as seen from mid-northern latitudes, around 45 degrees north, and 4 as seen from tropical southern locations around 25 degrees south. For morning observers, the estimated total hourly rates should be near 8 as seen from mid-northern latitudes and 13 as seen from tropical southern locations. The actual rate seen will also depend on factors such as personal light and motion perception, local weather conditions, alertness, and experience in watching meteor activity. Evening rates are reduced during this period due to moonlight. Note that the hourly rates listed below are estimates as viewed from dark sky sites away from urban light sources. Observers viewing from urban areas will see less activity as only the brighter meteors will be visible from such locations. End quote. Moreover, the next major meteor showers are the southern Delta Aquariids and Alpha Capricornids, which are not predicted to hit maximum until around July 31st. Cryptid sightings. This week's sighting comes from the Bigfoot Field Research Organization database, case number 75404. On July 10th, 2019, a kayaker and his friend were kayaking the White Salmon River near White Salmon, Washington. While resting, the main witness observed a Sasquatch crossing the river east to west. Unfortunately, he was unable to take any photos since his phone was turned off, and I suspect probably in some kind of waterproof container. And he did not feel that he would have enough time to get it out, turn it on, and focused before the creature had escaped. So, instead, he decided to be a good witness. So for the time that he observed the creature, he describes it as being about 7.5 feet tall, broad shoulders with a thinner waist, and covered in a black hair. Some of the hair was a little light in certain areas or absent, such as around the chest, around the waist, and in the armpits. There was no sagittal ridge, and the creature appeared to have a large brow that obscured the eyes. The witness was able to get a pretty good look at the face, although he was not able to make out the eyes, but did note it had very human lips and a very human nose. He was able to make this observation due to the fact that the creature, once it did notice him, turned its upper body toward him, and he was able to get a fairly good look. Something else that he noted about the head is that the hair, as he described it, was in short dreadlocks. The witness estimated that the creature started about 80 yards away, cut diagonally across the river towards him, and closed the distance to about 45 to 50 yards. Eventually, the creature did notice the witness as it turned its upper body to look at him and allowed him a good look at the face. After quickly crossing the river, the creature disappeared into the brush and over an embankment. This particular witness is a former biologist from Denali National Park and is credible not to make a mistake of misidentifying this animal as a bear. Unfortunately, though, his friend did not see the event as he was 20 yards removed taking a phone call. What a shame. Outdoor safety. So we're going to continue our bit here for outdoor safety. No matter if you're going outdoors to recreate or investigate, it is always a good idea to know what you're doing so you can be safe. The person in this story obviously knew where they were in the woods, and it's very important that if you go and do this similar activity, you will too need to know how to discern your location. Today's outdoor safety tip is about navigation. Having a map and compass, or GPS, is all well and good, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to use them. Maps are fairly simple, but they do take some skill and knowledge to use. For example, if it's not oriented correctly, you're going to be headed in the wrong direction. Same thing with a compass. They point to magnetic north. Most people probably know that. What most people don't know is that magnetic north is not the direction your map points, because your map points to grid north. These kind of things happen when you take a sphere and lay it out flat. Now, we're not going to get into all the specifics of, what to do with your compass and how to orient your map, but I just want to bring a couple things to your attention. That, number one, your compass has to be calibrated to your area. You see, there's something called declination. And depending on where you are in the world, your declination might be to one way or it might be to the other way. And that kind of thing depends on the metallurgic and geologic structures that are under the ground in your general area. For instance, if you live in the southeastern United States, there is a very large metal deposit around Tennessee, and it's big enough that it will pull your compass away from north to point at it. So you got to be able to account for that so your actual compass is reading the direction you want to go. So on your map, at the bottom, near the key, or not the key, the legend, you should find a little diagram that'll have declination. It'll have a line with a star and then a line either pointing left or right, and that'll tell you your declination. So you need to turn the bezel, which is a little ring around your compass, left or right, so you can account for that. The second thing that I want you to understand is something I've already mentioned. North on your compass and the north on your map are not the same direction. So you need to understand what magnetic north is, because that's where your compass is going to be pointing, and grid north, which is north on your map. Now, there's a lot of stuff out there. You can look, YouTube it. There's plenty of tutorials. Just understand, you need to know how to use this stuff before you get out there. Once you have understanding of how to orientate your map, and you know how to use your compass to navigate, then you're going to need to practice some of these things. Now, if you're only traveling short distances, then general directions are good enough. But if you're going to be covering a lot of ground, then it's very important to be able to shoot a bearing. Simply because if it's a long distance, even a small error of like a couple degrees is going to put you way off target. Now, if you're in an area where you can see distant landmarks, use them. Because you can say, okay, I know where I'm at on the map, I know where that landmark is, and I'm going to walk to it, and then I'm going to walk to the next landmark. And that'll work just fine. You don't necessarily have to shoot a heading because, well, you're walking toward a known location. And something cool, once you learn about navigation, is if you're lost and you can see two landmarks or more landmarks, you can actually use those two known locations to find your location. Navigation's a really cool thing. I could geek out about it for like hours, but I'm not gonna. So, at any rate, me personally, I prefer a map and a compass over a GPS, simply because a map and a compass don't need batteries. And, yeah, so long as I don't chunk them in the river, they're going to be just fine. GPS, on the other hand, well, maybe not. But even if you do choose to use GPS, just know that you need to know how it operates, and you need to know its limitations. Not all GPSs are very good in the mountains. I was in Tennessee, and my GPS took me through all kinds of little paths and routes. I was supposed to be on a road, but I'm pretty sure it took me down somebody's like driveway and through the woods in the mountains of Tennessee. So, yeah, I don't think they're so great in the mountains. Now, lastly, two things It's a good idea, no matter what you do, if it's a map and compass or if it's a GPS, to carry a personal locator beacon. They're not terribly expensive. They're only a few $100s. Some of them require a subscription, others don't. And they're easily found on Amazon. You don't have to go to REI or some expensive store. And, well, they could save your life. Because what happens is, let's say maybe you weren't smart and you didn't learn how your stuff worked before you went out into the woods. And then you also made the mistake of not telling anyone where you were going or when you would be back. Well, so long as your PLB has a charged battery, you can flip the casing up, press the button, and there is a person on the other end of that signal that's going to see it go off, and he's going to spin up search and rescue to come give you you're going to give them your exact location, and they're going to come rescue you. So, yeah, PLBs are a good thing. And the other thing that kind of fits into this is something called a RICO reflector. It works kind of like a RFID tag, and it makes it a lot easier for rescuers to really hone in on your location. So a rescuer in, say, like a helicopter, if they have a RICO transmitter, it sends a signal out, it'll hit your reflector and come back, and they'll be like, okay, it's right there. And they have all kinds. There are ones that are like tags that go on your pack. There are ones that strap onto your helmet. They even have a belt. So, like, that's what most people wear a belt anyway. So why not get a RICO belt? It's only like $50 anyway. And again, it could save your life. Post-biology. Have you heard of The Conjuring? Of course you have. The film came out in 2013 and is based around the haunting of a house in Burialville, Rhode Island. Well, if you have $300, you can go camping on the property. There are 8 campsites and 20 dates available between June and October. Additionally, tours of the house are available. Just know that you will have to bring your own ghost hunting equipment. Now, that being said, I have seen some seemingly legit documentaries about the house, which are very interesting. One called Sleepless Unrest, I would recommend. It's pretty good to watch. You can watch it for free on Amazon Prime. However, here's the skeptic coming out. If you are a fan of the Y-Files, a YouTube channel that I highly recommend, then maybe the house isn't all it's cracked up to be. So, Warner Brothers put out a statement with the movie that it was loosely based on real-life events centered around Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are supposedly like the paramount ghost hunters like ever. Well, if you're a fan of the Y-Files, then you know that he did an episode about Ed and Lorraine Warren, and his conclusions are less than flattering. I would definitely check out his video, and subscribe to the Y-Files. He's got some pretty compelling arguments on a lot of interesting topics, and fear the crab cat. Moving on. An article from Not Your Average News entitled, quote, Unveiling the Eerie Charm, the top 5 most haunted places in Horry and Georgetown counties, South Carolina. If you find yourself in eastern South Carolina and in need of some paranormal activity, try checking out these places. The Hermitage. Situated in Georgetown County, the Hermitage stands as an imposing plantation mansion with a sinister past. Many of the visitors and locals have reported ghostly apparitions, unexplained noises, and sudden temperature drops within its walls. Legend has it that the spirits of former slaves still linger, unable to escape the tragedy of their past. Atalaya Castle, I probably butchered that name, Atalaya, Atalia, I guess, Castle. Located within Huntington Beach State Park in Georgetown County, Atalaya Castle was once the winter residence of renowned sculptor Anna Hyatt Huntington and her husband Archer. Visitors have reported encounters with mysterious figures, disembodied whispers, and the unshakable feeling of being watched. The castle's eerie ambiance adds to its haunted allure. Pawleys Island. Pawleys Island is in Georgetown County, and it is home to a chilling legend, the Gray Man Ghost. As the tale goes, this spectral figure appears to warn residents of impending hurricanes and tropical storms. Many locals claim to have seen the ghostly figure dressed in gray, bringing an eerie sense of foreboding before the arrival of calamitous weather. Old Gun Church. Well, we're going to have to skip Old Gun Church for the moment, because for whatever reason, it seems to have been left out of the script. You can look it up, though. Old Gun Church. I'm sure it's a wonderful place. Lastly, the Rice Museum. Situated in Georgetown County, the Rice Museum holds a dark secret. Housed within the historic Kaminsky Hardware Building, it is believed to be haunted by the ghost of a former worker. Many visitors have reported unexplained phenomena, including moving objects, disembodied voices, and an eerie presence felt throughout the museum. Now, I've actually been to this place. It's been several years ago, and it's pretty interesting, actually. I would recommend it if you got a few minutes to go check it out. I can't remember how much, like maybe $5 or $7 a person. I'd have to check that, but there is a small admission fee, but it's a pretty cool place to check out. I don't remember getting any kind of weird feelings, but yeah, if when I go back there, because I go to Georgetown pretty often, a couple times a year, I'll definitely gonna bring my K2 meter. Maybe I'll do a little short live stream there. It'll be interesting. Upcoming events. June 2nd through 3rd, Canton, Ohio, is the Monster Fest presented by Small Town Monsters. There will be a movie premiere, amazing vendors, live podcast recordings, and 17 guest speakers, including Lauren Coleman, Cliff Barackman, and Stan Gordon. Tickets are available at smalltownmonsters.com/SMT Monsterfest. June 10 and 11, Dr. Stephen Greer presents a 2-day UFO disclosure conference and screening of his latest documentary, The Lost Century. This will be followed by the Disclosure 2.0 National Press Club event, Monday, June 12th. If you cannot make the events, there are virtual options as well. Tickets can be found online. They're about $499 for in-person or $99 for virtual. You can find them on Dr. Greer's website, Serious Disclosure. On top of that, some of this I know will be streamed live on his YouTube channel. June 16th through the 18th in Ashville, North Carolina, is the first annual Cosmic Summit featuring Randall Carlson among 14 other phenomenal speakers. Millions worldwide believe there is more to recent Earth and human history than recognized by our gatekeepers. The Cosmic Summit will tell the whole story best we can. The heterodox subjects addressed at the summit will include the well-published Younger Dryas Impact event, more recent cosmic impacts, suspected precursor civilizations, Clovis people, the Black Mat, Gobekli Tepe, lost ancient technologies, controversial archaeology, megalithic monument building, Egyptian mysteries, and catastrophic geology. Unfortunately, Grant Hancock and Jimmy Corsetti will not be at the conference. However, that means there may still be in-person tickets available. If not, you can also find virtual tickets. Tickets can be purchased at howtube.com/14369. June 17. In Wares Cave, Virginia, will be the Virginia Bigfoot Con, presented by the East Coast Bigfoot Researchers Organization. There will be many vendors, arts and crafts, food trucks, live music by Cousin Jimmy's String Band, and speakers including Zach Bales, Beau Mills, Rick Reels, Mike Familat, and Ed Brown, as well as a special guest appearance by Animal Planet's Turtle Man from Call of the Wild. Popular media. In today's popular media segment, we're going to be talking about a couple of anticipated video games, as well as my latest update on Skinwalker Ranch. One video game that I saw was kind of interesting is called Paranormal Hunter. It is already released on early access for Steam. However, a review from GameLuster.com might give some second thoughts. Apparently, the game is very similar to Phasmophobia, which is a PC game. The mechanics, the sound design, and the monster design, or rather ghost design, are apparently rather cheap and repetitive, and it does not have much in the way of a plot, other than you simply bumble around a house, search for objects, and then perform a banishing ritual before your character is forced to pass out. The review is not very happy, but if you want to read it, I'll let you go there and read it yourself. I still may get the game when it comes out for PS4, which is supposed to be sometime later this year. That being said, just looking from the trailer, the graphics are not PS4 quality, I can tell you that much. A few other games that are anticipated for upcoming release this year are Grey Hill Incident, developed by Refugium Games, due to be released June 9th. It actually looks pretty interesting. It's set in the 90s, and basically, yeah, you're a guy, you got one gun, it's a revolver, very few shots, and it's an alien invasion in the 90s, yeah. The trailer kind of reminds me a bit of the movie with Mel Gibson in it, Signs. Kind of reminds me of Signs a little bit. Another one is Alien Dark Descent, developed by Tindalos Interactive, and is due for release on June 20th. It's a single-player game based in Ridley Scott's world of Alien. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, developed by Sump Digital, is due to release August 18th and is a heartfelt homage to the 1974 movie. Spoiler warning. Spoilers ahead for Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. This is your spoiler warning. Turn away now. 3, 2, 1. In this week's episode, What a Mesa. The episode opens up with the customary montage review, having a clip of last year's drilling, a clip of the pink rock, the purple light, and the UAP that seemingly stalked Thomas in the south field. After this, we start the show with a review of the purple light from last week's episode. Even though the light appeared blue to the cameras, Thomas maintains that it was in fact purple, to which Travis remarks that cameras work very differently than eyes, and if the cameras had not been calibrated, they would not be showing the true color. He also comments that something purple shining that bright must have put out a lot of energy. Then they show the UAP footage, and Travis estimates that the object above Thomas was only a few hundred feet up. Now, not having been there, I want to caution people to say it is difficult to tell size and distance and altitude in the dark without anything as reference. But that's what he's saying, a few hundred feet up. After this debrief, the team moves outside to begin drilling into the mesa. One question that is brought up is, can the drill go through steel-reinforced concrete? To which the drill operator replies that not only can they, but they have done it in the past. And in fact, they've also drilled through granite. And the driller is very experienced with decades of drilling, and so they would expect that if there was something that came up, he would probably have an answer for it. So it was these same drillers who were there last year on the ranch attempting to drill into the mesa when they hit a possibly metallic dome-shaped object that the drill could not penetrate. That experiment ended with mysterious metal flakes of europium and tellurium that were seemingly fabricated. This year, the goal is to attempt to resolve another GPR anomaly that, in my opinion, it looks like a mine shaft. And their objective is to drill above the object that they were hitting last year. This was somewhat successful as the drill bit was pushed upwards, indicating that they may have found the top of the object from last year. Further on, about 270 or 280 feet into the drilling, the bit hit an object that it could not penetrate. And it was just sitting there and spinning and spinning and spinning. In conjunction with this, Travis picked up a weird signal. So the drill bit itself has a beacon, and it's transmitting at 33 megahertz. And they know this. They asked the guy, hey, does this have a transmitter on it? Yes, it does. Okay. And when the bit would hit this metal object, or whatever it is, it would seem to amplify and rebroadcast. So it'd be like hooking it up to an antenna of sorts. Well, an electrified antenna, because it's stronger. So they did a little bit of an experiment here, where they had the drill operator reverse and advance the drill 3 times. And every time that he advanced it and it came in contact with this anomalous object, the same result happened. The signal was amplified and seemed to be seemingly rebroadcast. Well, they spent about 30 minutes sitting on this object, trying to drill into it, and using about 8,000 pounds of push. So they were expecting to pull the drill bit out, look at it, and see that it had worn down. In fact, the drill operator actually mentions that at one point, because of how low the temperature is reading on the end of it, that the drill bit must have broken off. Well, they take it out, and the drill bit is in pristine condition. It does not look like it's been beaten up against anything hard. At least, especially not for 30 minutes at 8,000 pounds of push. So, it's very odd. Travis, he mentions that, what in the world could this thing be pushed up against? Obviously, it's something that is frictionless and possibly even a force field. And they do bring it up in the debrief, the insider debrief online. It's very interesting because that heat energy had to go somewhere. After the drilling, Thomas and Caleb put out some trail cams on the south side of the fields in the south field in hopes of capturing footage of UAPs similar to the purple light. While in the field, they came across a deer carcass and a burnt post. It's a fence post. They had a veterinarian come out, take a look at the deer, and she concluded that it was a 6-month or younger fawn, that it did not die from predation, but was scavenged afterwards. In the insider debrief, they talk about it, and they're like, the TV show made a much bigger deal out of it than we would have. Seeing a deer on the ranch is not that odd, and last winter was kind of rough, so, there's no telling how this thing died. But for whatever reason, the TV show decided to make it a prominent feature this episode. The burnt post, on the other hand, was a bit more intriguing, since the spot that was burnt was somewhat circular in shape, and Travis floated the idea that it could have been an orb that passed too closely to it and burnt it. And that's kind of tying back to the purple light, because something that bright, being purple, because purple's near the end of the spectrum, something that bright and purple would be giving off tremendous amounts of energy. And so, is it connected? Maybe. We don't really know. Now, Caleb and Thomas seem to think that it is fresh. When they panned around and looked at it, it didn't look very fresh to me. It looked like chunks were missing off of it. And again, this is why you need to be an insider. During the insider debrief, Caleb mentioned the fact that, there are chunks missing because we took them off for testing. And Travis assured us that, yes, this was very fresh because the stuff was still very powdery. Now, something else that was rather intriguing is that there was no foliage in the area that had been burnt or singed. There was no signs of fire anywhere else. So, it's so localized, and it's about 3 feet off the ground. And Thomas is fairly certain that this was not some branch that was slightly burnt, 20 years ago when the farmer decided, I'm going to use this as a fence post, and stuck it in the ground. He is very adamant that the material was still very crumbly and powdery. So we're just going to have to take him at his word. In the next episode, though, they are going to have a specialist come out and take a look at it. And, in the closing of the episode, when they do their little preview, he lays out pretty specifically, it's not arson, it's not a chemical burn, and it's not from lightning. So, what the world is it from? So, to close out the episode, Eric, Travis, Dragon, and Thomas review the geological analysis of the bore mud samples as well as the pictures of the pink rock. So, they weren't able to get any samples off the pink rock, so it was just photos that they sent in. And, the best guess is that this material, the pink stuff, is some kind of a deposit of selenium, and that it was deposited by vapor. So selenium is a solid at room temperature, and the boiling point is 1,265 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's pretty hot, and something would have to get it that hot to bring it to the boiling point to make, a steam for it then to settle on these rocks. So, what in the world could make that happen? We no idea. Now, Travis does point out that selenium is paired with zinc and is used as a metamaterial with possible applications for cloaking and camouflage. And you can look it up. It's zinc selenide, and there are several scientific papers out there you can read through where it does talk about the theoretical concepts of using it to bend light. Finally, the bore mud samples were analyzed and found to contain trace signatures of several highly conductive metals. Travis feels that these metals are probably leached, or have been leached rather, off of whatever the object is in the mesa. Having failed to figure out what the object in question is, Eric suggests that next they should get a small portable drill that can be carried up on top of the mesa and try to come at it from above. Now, I watched the interview, and I don't know if this is going to come up in the episode or not, but I watched the interview, and they actually talked about doing this or something like this. And it was so funny because they're like, we were drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling, and then we pulled the thing out, and the drill bit wasn't on the end of it. And so they spent like 3 hours trying to reattach this drill bit that was down in the ground, and they couldn't get it to do anything. Well, the next day they come out and they have to dig it out because they've rented this auger, essentially. So they dig it out, and the drill bit's not in the frickin' ground. And they're pulling their hair out because it's like, okay, what happened? Where did this thing go? And, sometime later when they go to retrieve it, or when they go to return it, they're thinking, okay, great, we're going to have to pay for this drill bit. Because apparently it makes like a 4-foot diameter hole, so it's a fairly big operation. The stupid drill bit is in the case, and they have no idea how it got there. So I don't know if this is the same object or machine or whatever, but if it is, I really hope they put that in the episode. That would be so cool. All right. Well, in their closing review, I already mentioned that they have the fire analysis guide come out, but they also have captured a UAP in broad daylight, presumably in the south field. That's what it looked like to me. Maybe it was on one of the trail cameras. So folks, that's all we have for this week. If you like what you heard, please like, share, subscribe, comment. All those things help the algorithms. If you did not like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. And if you have any comments about how I can do better, please do leave them. You can find us on Twitter at ParanormalOps23 and on Instagram and Rumble at ParanormalOperator23. Our email, if you have any sightings or experiences you want to report, or if you just want to say, hey, I like what you're doing, you can reach out to us at paranormaloperator23@gmail.com. Until next time, folks, keep searching in the darkness.